Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Montoya. Alright, so in today's video I have a behind the scenes look at my yellow wool coat that I fully lined. So I did make some modifications to the pattern and also a tutorial within this video on how I self-drafted this pocket, because y'all know I love pockets. If it don't have pockets, then it's just not something that I'm going to do. Alright, let's go ahead and jump right into this video.
Alright, so when determining my size, I looked at the bust measurement, and according to that bust measurement, I should cut out the 14. But I want mine to be a little bit oversized, so I went one size up. Now this pattern, it doesn't have finished garment measurements for view E, only for view A and B. So I just kind of guesstimated and measured where where the bust measurement usually falls. And after measuring, I say that the bust measurements for A and B are pretty close. Are pretty close to that of view E. So when I measured, I got about 45.5 inches when I did, my rough measurement guess. For the main fabric, I'm using this gorgeous wool blend that I got from Minerva Crafts. I bought a total of 4 yards. Now you only need 3 to create the coat, but I've decided to line mine. So I cut out all of my main pieces using this wool fabric, and then I also cut out the back lining pattern piece. And for the front lining and the sleeve lining, I'm using this Kente print fabric. So my pocket measures 9 inches by 11 1/4 inch. The next thing that I did after measuring that out was I created a fold line. So I wanted a 2-inch facing. So what I did from the top was measure down 2 1/4 inch, and then I drew a line and marked it as my fold line. I also marked out my seam allowance, which is 1/2 inch. So I drew a 1/2 inch line, and and I'll show you what we're going to do with this in a moment. So the next thing that you want to do after you have your pocket, just the square block drawn out, you want to go ahead and fold along this fold line. All right, and you also want to fold along this seam line down at the bottom. All right, next grab your pattern, your front pattern piece, which is number 11. And you want to find where it says waistline. So from that waistline measurement, you want to measure down 3 inches and then make your way over to the seam allowance and make a notch there in the side seam. Next, take that notch that you made at the side seam, that marking, and you want to line it up with the top of your pocket pattern. All right, now we need to straighten out our pattern piece. So right here is the grain line of my pattern piece, and this is the line that marks my pocket. What you want to begin to do is straighten up your pattern piece so that your grain line runs parallel with your pocket line. All right, now I have my pocket notch lined up with the top of my pocket, and my grain line of my pattern piece is of my front pattern piece is running parallel with my pocket line. So what I'm going to do is take some pattern weights to hold this in place. I'm going to grab my Sharpie, but you should take a pencil. And then now I'm going to trace along this side seam. Alright, once you have that traced, you can remove your pattern. Now, while your pattern is still folded on those fold lines, go ahead and grab your scissors and cut your pattern out here on the side. Alright, now you can open it back up where you folded. And then you can go ahead and cut the remaining pieces off. All right, you can go ahead and cut this out of your main fabric, and you'll need 2 pieces. All right, next I took my pocket with the wrong side facing up. And then what I did was I took an index card and I measured down 2 1/4 inches. I took the top of the pocket and I folded over to meet that line. And then I took a pressing cloth. Let's just pretend this is my pressing cloth. So I just took a scrap piece of fabric from my wool. I laid it over and then pressed it along the top edge to create my fold line. All right, then you want to hem that top edge 1/4 inch. Now flip it over to the right side, and right along that fold line, you want to fold back. And on the side here, the straight edge side, so remember this side over here is the side seam, and you know that because it's going at an angle. So what you want to do is fold over on that fold line, line it up and pin in place. Now we're going to take this to our sewing machine and we're going to stitch in 1/2 inch seam allowance along this edge here. So along this side and along the bottom edge. All right, next thing you want to do is trim this seam allowance on the facing. So right above that 1/4 inch, I'm just gonna snip and trim. All right, and now I'm going to turn this to the right side out. Alright, now the next thing that I'm going to do is take this to my iron, and right along the rest of that 1/2 inch stitching line that we made on the side and bottom edge, you're going to press right along those stitching lines. Alright, now I'm stitching on top of the facing. So I've lined up the edge of the facing with 1/8 inch. I'm doing a second row of stitches, and now I'm lining up the edge of the facing with 1/4 inch. Alright, next you want to make sure that you transferred that notch you made to signal the top of the pocket. Make sure that you transfer that to your fabric. Now grab your pocket and lay it with the wrong side touching the right side. And take the top edge of the pocket and line it up with that notch. And then just go ahead and begin pinning the rest of the pocket in place, making sure everything is nice and straight and smooth. Alright, now we're going to stitch close to the edge to attach our pocket in place. I have a 1/8 inch mark on my pressing foot, so I'm going to use that as my guide. Alright, for my sleeve lining piece, I do need to trim the hem by 1 inch. And I just remembered that right now, so I'm going to trim that off. I'm also going to trim the back lining piece and the front lining pieces. So I'm going to measure up 1/4 of an inch and then cut, and the same thing with the front. Measure up 1/4 of an inch and then cut that off. All right, next it's time to hem the bottom edge of the main fabric. So what I did was first I folded up 1/4 of an inch, and then I folded up 1 inch. I have the wrong sides facing each other, similar to the sleeve. So I'm taking the lining it up with that 1 inch fold line. And I'm going to take some pins and pin that in place. And I'm just going to fold up on that fold line. And now I'm going to stitch a 7/8 of an inch seam allowance to hold that in place.